All right, you are at a deep dive sponsored by Entrepreneurs Forever. What worked and didn't work in 2024 and planning ahead for 2025. Doogie, why don't you take this moment to just introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Doogie Levine, and I am a facilitator for Entrepreneurs Forever. I facilitate SoCo 1 and West PA 1. But when I'm not at Entrepreneurs Forever, I also run two consulting firms. My first consulting firm is called IAS. We're an operation consulting firm, so we help people figure out how. And I've recently launched a new one called ATEED, where we focus on helping businesses integrate AIs into the workflows. And when it comes to goal setting, KPIs, and performance management, it all comes down to how are you actually going to do it? So our goal today is to help you, first of all, figure out what
Good, good, good.
activities
How
and
are you?
actions are important to your
Yeah,
business,
yeah, yeah. That's okay. No.
and then turn them into actionable plans you can take and use. So we're going to try to help you get started on that journey today.
Yeah, and I would say the only thing I want to put a sort of commentary or a reminder about is you're probably not going to nail it all in the next hour and a half. I would love it if you did. But if Doogie and I get you thinking about this and saying, I need to come back and do this, or think about that, or talk to my peer group about that, we'll feel like we have accomplished something, even if we don't finish the task today. So I don't have time to introduce 21 people. So you heard me and Doogie, and the rest of you can meet virtually in the chat if you'd like. I'm going to mention a little bit about Entrepreneurs Forever, though I think many of you are members, so you know about our programs. I'm going to mention next month's deep dive, and then we're going to get right into it. And we do Q&A. At the end, it'll be an open discussion, and we don't tape that Q&A. So if you want to get into some of your real numbers and share, you don't have to worry that it will be recorded for everyone in the whole world to hear. I believe most of you know about our organization. Our mission is to equalize opportunity by connecting often overlooked small business owners with the peers, education, and support they need to succeed. Because I never remember to come back at the end and tell you what's next month. Next month is Going Global, and I have actually a guy from the Federal Bureau of, I've completely forgotten the name of it, but he helps people figure out how to do exporting of whatever they do. So if you're a service provider or a product manufacturer, we're going to deal with both of those things. So whether you're selling a food product and you want to ship it to Canada or Mexico or the Philippines, that's relevant. But if you're a consultant to women in the workplace, they need that in Europe too. So he's going to help us understand what's involved in doing that. The registration will be on our website. And then Greg Rossack, who's another one of our facilitators, who happens to also be with us today, is going to help me guide you through understanding your customer journey on Monday, March 17th. It's one of those back to basics. My favorite story about customer journey, and I'll leave it at that, was when I told somebody that they didn't have a phone number on their website. And they said, that's because I don't want anyone to call me. And all I thought of was, if you don't want anyone to call me, then you can't be surprised that you're losing new customers. So if you've ever thought that way or haven't, think about it and join us for Understanding Your Customer Journey in March. My disclaimer, this presentation does not take the place of professional advice from your own paid advisors. So Doogie, why don't you kick us off by talking about what we're going to try to accomplish with looking at last year's numbers?
So I'm going to start by asking a question. And this is, feel free to unmute and share your answer. Why is it important that we look at numbers, right? We've all been told this, but how many people know why it's important? What is the reason it's important to look at numbers?
Anybody?
You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been.
Okay, so it's part of telling our story, what the past was. Great, that's a great reason. What's another?
Because
Priya.
they're measurable, they're real.
Oh, Amanda, thank you. Yeah. So you can't actually know how well you've done without measurements, for sure. What else? Let's take one or two more.
Follow the data, double down on what's doing well, and cut out anything that is not doing well.
Yeah, so data versus feelings-driven decision making, right? Both are valuable, but if you're only doing one, are they valuable? That's a great one. Anybody else have another example of why it's important?
Numbers don't lie.
What was that, Stephanie?
Numbers don't lie.
Numbers
So-
don't lie. Most of the time.
Most, the end of the
Because
day.
there
they-
is the chance that you filled the numbers in wrong. They're not recorded or fudged. But yes, most of the time they don't lie, but at least they give you directional decision making, even if there's a mistake. So it's very important that we find the numbers. And some of the core numbers we're going to look at right now, Deborah, you can go to the next slide. So we're going to look at your top line, your revenue, your bottom line, your profit, right? We're going to look at these numbers. And then the most important to you as individuals to really monitoring your personal success is how are you compensating yourself? So you can look at that as salary only if you want. It can be salary plus any benefits you offer yourself. It can be salary plus benefits plus like how you use your time if you calculate the value of your time. So I encourage you to push to go get those.
Yeah, and
these
we're
places-
gonna, actually, they're not gonna go get them yet because we're gonna talk about looking for the KPIs too. But I just want to point out, I don't really care how you take your owner's compensation. And we know some LLCs and we know some people who are just doing pass-throughs for, I don't care how, if you write one check at the end of the year, whether you're on payroll. We're just trying to figure out, are you
Total.
taking money out of your business and paying yourself?
Yeah, so we're gonna go in a minute. We'll go and we'll find this data if you don't have it available for you. And like we said earlier, if it's not available, feel free to guesstimate. All right. All right. Let's talk about KPIs for a second. What is a
You know what,
KPI?
Doogie, while you're talking about this, I'm gonna give everybody their worksheet. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a minute, but let's talk
Okay.
about their KPIs while I get that.
Awesome. So what is a KPI? How many of you have heard this term? Yeah, I see some hands going up. What is it?
Key performance indicators.
Great. Cool. What is it?
Metrics for how well you're doing.
Great. What is it? Let's move away from these fluffy terms that the world's thrown at us, and I really want to know, what is a KPI?
Tells you how you whether or not you met how you did on a certain point of your business.
Yeah, right. That's a great answer. It tells you how you did at achieving a goal you set in your business. Right? There are certain goals that the world sets for you. Revenue is a goal that the world sets for you. You need a certain amount of revenue to afford a lifestyle, right? And everything after that lifestyle is called profit. And if we think about our lives, right? Those are some that just being in business, the world sets for you. But what are other KPIs? What are other goals that you have for your business? And what are the indicators of
Yeah,
those?
so I think what Doogie's driving at is that different people in different businesses are going to have different KPIs. So for instance, if you're a life insurance salesman, I don't know if any of you worked for one of those big companies, Northwestern Life, they want to know how many sales calls you've had. How many people did you sit down in front of a husband and wife and talk to? That's a KPI for a Northwestern Mutual Life now. If you are a social media expert, it might actually be the number of new followers you got every month. Or for a food truck, the number of, I don't know, new items you added, or the number of new clients you added. So so who's here who measures something, a KPI of some sort, who can share it?
Melissa. I saw
Go ahead.
Melissa Gross, so go ahead.
Yes, I have a hair salon, so our KPIs are how many clients walk through the door, how much retail each client bought, how much service each client bought, if they've rebooked their appointment, if they've rebooked their appointment with the stylist that they've seen, how much money per hour each stylist brings in and how productive they are per hour, meaning did they have a client in the seat at the whole time, or were they just kind of walking around and doing towels and whatever else needs to be
Interesting.
done?
That's
Yeah,
a
so-
lot of KPIs, Melissa.
There's a lot of really good ones in there because you're monitoring frequency, right? Frequency of customer interaction. About 4 or 5 of them are actually measuring how often somebody does something. And then also waste time, right? How many times are they not doing something that's positive to your business? Those are some really good examples of frequency and action-based KPIs.
Who else here is measuring?
Anybody else?
Chrissy?
Oh, with those
Yeah,
suckers.
so I'm a blogger, so it's going to be like website traffic and then specifically breaking that down between organic traffic, Pinterest traffic, social media traffic, ad revenue, RPM, so how much I'm making per 1,000 visitors, and then affiliate marketing income, and specifically looking at that on a post level as well as a larger scale level.
Great. Another great example of frequency based. Victor.
Hi, Victor. I manufacture bagels and it's a bagel shop / cafe. I was using my metric as how the average revenue knocked down to how many bagels, how much cream cheese, and so on. But toward the end of the year, I met up with a lady from the SBDC, and she said, "You're not doing it right," and she wants me to track every single item added on to the sandwiches and like break it down to really little small pieces, this is going to be my question to you. Is it worth it to go through that extreme to try to know how much every slice of tomato costs to add to the sandwich, or just?
So save the question for the end, and
Yeah.
this way
It's
we can
a
ask follow-up questions and
wonderful
get more
question.
detail.
Great,
It's a
great,
great question,
Yes.
but we'll get to it at the end and see if we can't break that one down.
That's my point is, how far do we have to go deep down?
Right, for the purposes of today,
We might answer that actually.
Right.
We actually might
may
answer that.
it by the end, but because this is an exercise, I'm gonna ask you for KPI. I would, for instance, say, Victor, the average ticket, right? What's the average customer per person would be good enough for this first round of measurement, don't you think, Doogie?
Yeah, there's also like the difference of like your core KPIs, which are the business indicators that are moving you in the right success, versus like a specific segment within your business, which is, you know, that the niche of each individual product. You might want to get to that level eventually. However, can the macros tell you enough to help you make decisions to keep hitting them? So there's that balance, and we're really talking about the macro ones today because all of those actions you're talking about serve your revenue and profit. They would all be steps underneath either one of those KPIs. Actually, all the examples we've talked about so far serve either revenue or profit as additional pieces. Like if you were to put them under a tier, they would be underneath them in terms of indicating, are we achieving what we need to?
Which is what you should be spending time on. So for instance, I had a client at one point who told me how many followers he had on social media when he posted cute pictures of kittens and bunnies. And I'm like, how does that turn into revenue? I don't care how many kitten and bunny followers you have. If it isn't material to your bottom line, it's not worth measuring.
And those are all very important. There's one other classification of KPIs I want to get to, but let's take one more example and see if we get there. And if not, I will let you know what it is. I'm going to let Stephanie go because she has her hand up.
So I do a lot of bookkeeping work for contractors and tradesmen. So some of the things that they're tracking are like average job, and then they can get granular if they're doing different things like construction work, you know, if they're doing like plumbing or electrical, kind of like just their different departments. Exactly, efficiency. And then, but then also expenses, materials, just kind of seeing where the trends are there.
Yep. So awesome. Great examples. How many of you have a values-based KPI? Like based on your actual personal or business values, a KPI that indicates that. Chrissy, I saw your hand go up. What is your example of your value-based KPI?
How much I can travel throughout the year.
Great. So you have a personal value, which is like valuing your time, something like that, or
Yep.
and you are able to measure that through. My goal is to spend X amount of hours or days traveling this year.
Exactly.
Beautiful. That is a great example of a value-based KPI. Anybody else have any kind of value-based KPI like that? So I'm going to challenge you when you think about your major. Okay, Kristen.
Kirsten? Oh,
Kirsten, sorry.
That's okay. I was thinking maybe like staff, like how you can afford to bring on help.
Yeah, so say one of your core values as a business owner is to employ people, just to create that employment environment, right? And you might have a thing of like, well, I want to provide 10 people with a stable income. That's a great personal value-based decision. And it may change the way you look at, say, something like an investment or decision that you're going to make because that's important to you. Right?
Except that, Doogie, I would say that employing people should hit the bottom line. Like, are you big enough to bother them? But the satisfaction level of your employees, like, are the people who work for me happy and stable and I haven't had turnover? It's like an employee satisfaction number.
Yeah.
That would be good for me.
I agree. I think both are correct because actually one is to say make a choice on your profit margin. You may make a choice and say, I'm going to take a lower profit margin to have greater revenue share, or I'm going to build a business like an ESOP, which is an employee-owned business, where my employees own a percentage of the business, then they're just as invested in the greater profit. So you can then restructure based on your value, but it depends on, I wouldn't say just employ for employee sake, you know, if we're going to get on to that one in particular. But
Okay.
another one might be like a community impact goal. I want to donate X amount of dollars. I want to volunteer X amount of dollars. I want to make a change. So when you think about your KPIs, we challenge you to think about those in addition to the more traditional way we're looking at KPIs. That's the point we're trying to make. And I challenge you to have at least one of those that speaks to a greater either individual personal value or the business impact value on your community in a way to measure that.
All right. So the main thing we want you to do is commit to, I'm giving you 3 spaces. You can add more if you want, but it also needs to be something that you can then have that look back and figure it out. And, you know, you may not have the records right now. You might not know what your average ticket per customer was in 2022, but this would be the kind of thing you'd put a red circle around and come back to. But we want to give you a few minutes to go and fill in part 1 of your worksheet. So the worksheet was attached in the chat. It's a fillable PDF. If you're like me and you like printing things out, you could print that PDF as well. I have 4:21. How about if we come back at 4:30 exactly? I'll give you 9 minutes. So go put in your gross, your net, your owner's comp on this worksheet for as many of those years as you can get. Set those KPIs and put the numbers in again for this year, last year, and the one before if you can. All right? Do you want to talk about what it felt like to do this?
Chris,
Go ahead,
go ahead.
I personally hated it. Made me realize that a lot of my KPIs are pretty soft and I'm not doing enough to really kind of track it and I mean turn this into like a real business type of thing.
It's good. It's good insight. Victor?
Yeah, that was really sad. I agree with him. And this is why my new year resolution, pay attention more to the bookkeeping to know exactly what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. So this is a wake-up call for me.
Awesome. I think you want to go by Queen? Is that what I'm seeing by it's in?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Uju.
Oh, I was like, I thought you wanted to go by Queen. That's why you put it there. Like, so I was like, I'm going to call her
Thank
Queen.
you. I appreciate it. But my name is Uju. You know, I agree with the sentiment shared. This was a very sobering exercise. What I realized is that my gross revenues has actually decreased over the years, which is quite sobering. I own a business, a beauty salon. And the year that I had the highest revenue was when I had the most stylists. And this past year, I was a solo stylist. And so I don't even know what to expect for my revenues this year. I have not done my taxes, so I did estimate my revenues for 2024, but it was a very sobering exercise. So now I'm definitely inspired to be more strategic with pricing and offering higher ticket services, upsells, and things like that to try to keep my baseline from not decreasing.
And that is exactly where we're going to go with this, in that hopefully this is part 1 that sort of shakes the foundations of your world and says, okay, now let's get real about it. Amanda, didn't want to cut you off. What did you want to ask a question?
Sure.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say kind of the opposite. Like I'm super grateful that all the numbers went up. Like that's really cool, but I don't really like the KPIs that I'm measuring. Like we measure a lot of things, but I don't know, none of them really mean too much to me. I don't know if that makes sense. So I'm excited for the rest of the conversation.
That's a great honestly, that's huge because sometimes we measure things that the world tells us to measure, but they aren't actually important to moving our business and our dream for our business forward. So, man, if that's the experience that you had, that's awesome.
All right, so we're going to go right into breakouts in a moment, but the thing that we're guiding you to try to do in this part one is what can you learn? Hopefully not just up or down, but there's subtlety in there. Did you meet or exceed your goals? What were the elements? And I love that we heard, I was a solo stylist. That's going to change the numbers. You've done some thoughtful analysis here. What could you or should you have done differently? And what did you avoid doing this year that you could have done that would have changed this? Doogie, I know that was one of your points. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the time, especially once we get into the more detailed of breaking down our KPIs into what I call key performance activities, actions that we take, we find ourselves using avoidance around the things that will cause us either emotional discomfort, physical discomfort, or any other form of discomfort you might have. So it's important to note when you go through your KPIs and say, what are the components of it that I am avoiding, I'm trying to stay away from. So it can be a huge indicator to say, I either need to solve this problem, get help, or come up with another way.
All right, we're going to send you into breakout rooms of, I think it's about 4 people each. And I'm going to say it's 4:34. Let's come back at 4:44. And in your groups, obviously, you need to just tell each other what your businesses are and share a few insights and maybe be open to other people's point of view. Try not to hog the microphone, give everybody a chance. And I'll send you a warning at halfway and at a minute. So 10 minutes. Go forth and work together.
Other insights from your conversations? Neil?
Yeah, I'm new here. It's my first time at one of these meetings, so thanks for having me. And I was happy to find out I wasn't the only one that didn't have it all together here with all the numbers. It's my first year in business, so my books are a mess right now.
It's good. It's good. I mean, that comfort's really nice. Amy, I see you.
Yeah, hey Doogie, hi everybody. Amy from Massachusetts. I think my insight, it's sort of allowed, like, kind of yearning to like really grow big. I feel like I've been through 10 years of like one personal crisis after the next, and this year I feel like, wow, I actually have nothing inhibiting me. What is wrong here? Like, it's a bad joke, but I'm like, oh my God, I can literally focus and build my business, knock on wood, for the first time in a decade. Like, not that I've been in this business for 10 years, but more like 5. So I think I'm realizing I've been playing it small. I'm like sick of the small sandbox, and I'm not sure how to like, I'm looking to 10x plus my business by the end of this calendar year. Like, I'm not playing around. Now, mind you, I'm hovering at the 30,000 plus mark. So we're talking like 300,000 by the end of this year. I have some advisors that are like, that's crazy. You should just double what you're doing right now. Be reasonable. And I'm like, no, I'm not here to be reasonable. I'm here to make like a massive impact before I die. So I'm not sure how to like scale it at a level that like I'm okay with. I need to not need like, I'm not a full-time social entrepreneur just to play small, and I'm realizing that's where I've been. So I'm not sure like what exactly is needed. I just know what I've been measuring clearly is not going to get me where I need to go. So it's more of like an insight. And if anybody else is playing like really big, like why not? Please connect with me. Oh, I haven't read that, Amanda. That's so wonderful. I just saw that. That's perfect. That's perfect for me. Thank you. So that's what I'm up to, the insight. And like, I guess the big question, Doogie, Deb, good to see you, is like, if we just been kind of like comfortable / uncomfortable, but like want to really go big or go home, whatever the hell that means, like, what does that look like in terms of tweaking our KPIs and really stepping it up?
Doogie?
So thanks.
Yeah, so that goes to, first of all, anybody who aspires to be large, first of all, define what that actually is.
Yeah.
right?
I mean, for me, yeah, it's not
You
like
started
that's
to
what
define it, right? You started to define it. You put a financial number, right? That was part of what big is to you. There's a financial number. But truly define this. And one of the best ways you can go about doing it is going through an exit plan. Design what it would take for you to be willing to sell or move on from your business. Right? If you go through an exercise that you answer the question of like, what would my business have to be for me to be willing to sell it or move on from it? That tells you your definition of whatever big is. And that it should include your lifestyle, it should include the successes of the business, the impacts of it, what's important in the direction, all of those types of things. And there's more to it, but generally speaking, that's a great way to start with defining it. Then ask yourself, why is this exit important to me? And then start breaking it down and keep asking yourself why until you get down to the small steps of what year one would look like. Because basically, once you have that vision, you're playing at year one again, regardless of what you've done, and regardless of how long you've been in business, because you never had a clear objective. And then you can create KPIs that speak to that objective, right? Once we know what we're doing. So get clear on what you actually want to do or build, then backtrack all the way down to today, is my general suggestion and oversimplification of a process.
And I would say this is something that you should be bringing to your peer group and working through with them so that they can support you, because it's it's a big hairy ambitious goal, a BHAG they call it sometimes, and I hope that they can support you to be there.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any insights? Because I want to get us to 2025 and setting goals too.
I just want to say I really enjoyed the advice that was just given in terms of being able to look at what is a realistic goal and what really means big and scaling for me, because I was kind of all over the place too. I was just thinking like pulling things, having a big a BHAG, that I just thought was nice, but going backwards now to look at what is my company really worth to me at its biggest point. And then, track back from that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that share.
Problem.
And the other thing I just want to say, as an organization, Entrepreneurs Forever wants to support each of you to have the business you want to have. And for some people, Amy just said she wants to have a 10x business. That probably requires hiring people. Other people are really happy having a one-person, really productive business. And like Chrissy loves to be able to travel. She might not want to be bigger. We don't say you have to be a certain thing or a certain size. We just want you to do what you do with as much integrity and profitability, and taking home the owner's compensation to create what you want to create, whatever that is.
And regardless of that definition, we want this to be as easy as possible, right? Like that's why we have peers supporting you, to make it easier. So yeah.
Great. So I'm going to actually not go to my deck here, but I'm just going to ask you each to go onto your worksheet. You just had those 2024 numbers, and hopefully you looked at 2023 and 2022. Put the numbers down for 2025. And then we're going to lead you into a goal setting exercise that hopefully will help you get there. But you know what they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So let's at least say today, January 13th, 2025, that I want by the end of 2025 for my organization to have this gross revenue, this net revenue, take home this owner's compensation, and those couple of KPIs. All right, Doogie, why don't you talk them through what the worksheet is outlining in
From here
terms
on out, yeah.
of taking these ideas and turning them into SMART goals?
Okay, so how many of you have seen this acronym before? SMART? Okay, so the majority of people have experienced in it, so I'm not going to go into like massive depth on it, but the idea is about creating a goal that is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And the reason for that is each one of those is a core action that you're going to associate a person with. And that's the part that most SMART implementers kind of leave out of it, is if you think about it, if you take like sales goals, for instance, and then we say, okay, how are you going out and selling? I'm selling it through networking. So my specific target might be, I need to attend 20 networking events a month Now it's measurable, it's a specific number to get one client, right? It's attainable, relevant, and time bound because I added per month, right? It's specific to an actual action the person does. So when you go and we take your KPIs and we're going to break it down, as you can see on your worksheet, we're going to break them down first. You're going to take one of your KPIs. It can be revenue. It can be one of the other ones that you entered. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to create those steps. I want you to think, well, how do I actually achieve this? So if, say, in Amy's example, she wants to go to from 30 to 300, she needs to first start with, how am I currently selling? Right? She's got to make her sales goal and break it down step by step. For the number of conversations I currently do, I get X amount of sales. Break it down. How do I get those conversations? That's the next question. Great. Where, what are the things that are leading me to going and getting them? And then you can say, how many of these are possible, or do I need to add in new steps? Does that make sense?
Why don't we get somebody else who has a KPI that they want to work on in 2025 that we can help break down beyond just a straight revenue one? Anybody want to share, and we'll help you brainstorm it? No sharing?
I think people are already working. All right, Victor, what do you got? Everybody, you can start working as we do this. Feel free to start working.
Yeah. What I was talking about earlier about KPI, the ingredients of every single sandwich and so on, to improve it, enhance it, and just make it more efficient, I would say. So this is what people do, like Chick-fil-A, Burger King, all these kind of places. But sometimes when I think about it, it's just like too much time and effort to track it down to that T.
Might be.
So should I or should not?
So is the idea that the advice you're receiving to understand your food cost better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you currently know your food costs when you're creating your menu?
Yes.
Okay, so you're already doing some initial startup food cost. Are you doing any reconciliation of like the macro of it?
No.
Okay, so
I know the fact how much it costs, but I don't track it. That's the thing.
Would the SMART goal, Doogie, to give himself the challenge of tracking it, like every month to reconcile and work back to
yeah,
say,
I mean, like if it is something to better understand your food costs, like say that's your overall goal,
yeah,
right? Because the one thing I think what the people are trying to give you advice on is that, well, how do you even know your food costs are good?
I know it's good because this is something we talked about, but the production of it, like let's say toward the end of the day when we have a waste, so it's a coffee, whatever, we don't really waste a lot of coffee because the coffee does not sell hot. We use it for ice, but sometime the ice after a few days, if it doesn't sell, especially the flavor one, I throw it away. But I don't know how much do I throw away. I try to have like educated guess of what to make, how much. Same thing with the bagels. So I bake 1,000 bagel a day. So some days are good days and I sell them all. Sometimes they're not that great and I have some leftovers. So I try to utilize the leftover for donation or a good venue, but I don't track every single bagel not been sold.
Well, hold on. So you have a POS system, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So it should actually be able to be doing some of that reporting in there. So you might be able to save yourself time by actually just pulling the reports from the POS. But I think there is value in what people are suggesting to you of monitoring, or at least going back and rectifying, like, all right, some of the core products like bagels.
Right.
And maybe you have like 5 or 6 types of bagels, or I don't know how many you have,
right,
but
I'm gonna be the bad guy because I can't, until we get to the Q&A at the end, I can't, we're losing time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Victor, we will come back to you, and Doogie and I will stay on with you and help you on your bagel economics at the end, I promise.
But simply put, yes.
I want to open all the rooms again. And you're going to spend the next 10 minutes with those same people that you were with before, helping flesh out some SMART goals that are going to help them achieve those 2025 numbers based on the learnings that they shared with you about 2024. And we will come back at 10 minutes after 5. Smiling, this is a very good sign.
People are starting to feel optimistic. They've come out of the dregs.
It's the beginning of the year.
Who wants to share anything kind of cool, interesting, a new goal that they set? Anything you want to share? Greg, go ahead.
I just go first and thank Chris for asking me some really great questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
I volunteered to become Amy's informal additional E4All mentor.
Okay.
Great. Chris Kreitzer?
Yes, we had very similar goals. His was just a higher number. And so for me to take that same concept and try to match it to my numbers and also my business, since you know businesses can be different, it was very helpful. And I'm so glad that I got connected that way.
Awesome.
I'm going to also say this in case any of you don't know, since I think almost everyone here is a member of one of our groups, is that you are allowed to ask for one-on-one time with your own facilitator, or get this, one who is not your facilitator. So if you have an operational issue and you want a one-on-one with Doogie, you need to ask your facilitator to get it approved. But if you want one on sales coaching, you have Greg there. You know, we have Gina, who had this amazing exit from her plane operated laundry company, multi-million dollars. You want to talk about selling your company? Gina's fantastic. So we have a bunch of people who can help you with all kinds of things. And just need to ask through your facilitator. And frequently they have all kinds of resources at their disposal as well. Priya, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say I appreciated my conversation with my group, especially Chrissy. She helped me out with understanding social media. My goal is to do more online selling. And I have a social media person, and she's balking at having goals set up. And it's like, well, you need those goals because as a small business, I'm paying her a pretty good penny.
Yeah, I would just simply, how do you expect me to monitor your success? That would
Yeah.
be my question right back to them in a second.
Yeah. So I appreciated the insight she gave and that it was reasonable because that's, you know, she understands that business and I'm not being unreasonable with what I'm asking.
Yeah.
All right. I want to give Doogie a chance to talk to some of these last few slides, and then we're going to stop recording and have sort of an open conversation. But Doogie, why don't you take it from here?
Yeah, so these questions, this is kind of one of those things that I would either take a photo of, something like that. These questions are for you. There's going to be this slide and the next slide of going back and reviewing your goals to see if asking yourself any of these questions will assist you in refining it and making it into something that's actually actionable and fulfills your greater mission purpose of your business. So I'm doing very high level. We're going to leave them up for about 30 seconds.
I also am going to send everybody the deck, so you can just take it out of there too.
All right, perfect. Never mind. You don't even have to worry about it. I just want you to glance at these questions for now. These are all things to go back and take a look at your KPIs, your goals, and ask yourself some of these questions. These are some of like the biggest ones that I ask and work with clients when we're designing operational process, because every single one of your goals requires some sort of system, process, or experience to make it happen. So these will help you to start thinking them out in a systemic way. That's all.
Okay.
Just wanted to give those to you.
And I'll make sure everybody gets them in the PowerPoint. You know, how are you going to get there and some other things to consider. And then this is a big one. What is the accountability that you want to take on for what you have just written down? I encourage you to bring them to your next peer group meeting and check in monthly if you can. It's one of those things that by literally putting it on paper or documenting it, it becomes far more real, which is why we pushed you to write it down in the worksheet. So I'm going to stop recording and officially thank Doogie.
My pleasure.